Imagine this. One of the biggest names in gospel, T.D. Jakes, admired by millions. But behind the pulpit, the truth is merciless. Bishop J. Sheard just revealed details that could shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew about him. Secrets, tensions, and hidden conflicts. Things no one dares to talk about are finally coming to light. You won't believe what happened next. For decades, T.D. Jakes has been celebrated as one of the most powerful voices in gospel, drawing crowds in the tens of thousands and inspiring millions online. But behind the massive success, there's a side that rarely makes it to the headlines, a side that Bishop J. Sheard is now revealing. In this video, you're about to hear insider truths about Jakes that have remained hidden until now. From behind-the-scenes conflicts to decisions that shocked even his closest allies, this story exposes layers of ambition, rivalry, and controversy that most people never see. You won't believe the moments Bishop Sheard calls merciless, where the very image of leadership and faith is challenged. This is where the story gets unbelievable. By the end, you'll question everything you thought you knew about one of gospel's biggest figures and see the human side behind the legend. But what exactly triggered this revelation, and how deep does it go? Stay with us, because what comes next will change how you see T.D. Jakes forever. To understand the controversy, we have to start at the beginning. T.D. Jakes wasn't born into a life of fame or fortune. He grew up navigating challenges that could have broken him, but instead, he built a ministry that became a global powerhouse. From his early days preaching in small churches to founding the Potter's House in Dallas, Jakes' rise seemed unstoppable. He became the face of gospel leadership, charismatic, influential, and commanding. Millions tuned in to hear him speak, buying into the vision of hope, empowerment, and spiritual breakthrough. But behind the scenes, not everyone experienced the same version of T.D. Jakes. Bishop J. Sheard reveals that what many consider his greatest strengths, the ambition, the drive, the relentless push to grow the ministry, also came with a side rarely discussed. Decisions were made in the shadows, and sometimes, allies and even fellow pastors were caught in situations where the stakes were high and the fallout merciless. The truth? The very power that elevated Jakes to global fame also created tension in ways that shook relationships and tested loyalties. And as Bishop Sheard points out, some of these moments weren't just disagreements, they were defining confrontations that shaped the very culture around him. But here's where it gets unbelievable. One incident in particular, according to Sheard, pushed the boundaries of what even seasoned pastors thought was acceptable. It's a story of ambition, influence, and a merciless side. Of leadership few ever witness firsthand. Bishop J. Sheard doesn't mince words when he describes T.D. Jakes' leadership behind closed doors. While the world sees the uplifting sermons, the spiritual breakthroughs, and the inspiring speeches, what Sheard experienced tells a different story. According to insiders, there were moments when Jakes' drive for success crossed lines many never imagined. Sheard points out that Jakes could be intensely strategic, even ruthless, when protecting his ministry's vision. Pastors and team members recall times when decisions were made swiftly, leaving little room for debate or dissent. One example Sheard shared involves a leadership meeting that, on the surface, looked like any other. But behind the polished words and cordial smiles, tensions were running high. Jakes challenged long-standing advisors and even questioned their loyalty in ways that left some shocked and others silent. It wasn't just tough leadership, it was merciless precision, a display of authority that demanded results at any cost. What makes these revelations even more shocking is the human toll. People close to Jakes reportedly felt the weight of these decisions in their personal lives, careers, and reputations. Bishop Sheard emphasizes that while Jakes' intent may have been to protect the ministry, the methods left scars that the public would never hear about. And yet, even with this intensity, Jakes maintained a charismatic, larger-than-life persona that drew millions in. This duality, the inspiring pastor on stage and the merciless strategist behind the scenes, is at the heart of the controversy. But the story doesn't stop there. There was one incident, more explosive than the rest, where Bishop Sheard says the confrontation reached a level that changed everything. A decision, a confrontation, and a revelation that no one outside that room would have imagined. And here's the question that has left many in the gospel community stunned. How far will a pastor go to protect their vision, and at what cost to those closest to them? Bishop Sheard recalls a meeting that still echoes in his mind, a meeting where T.D. Jakes' reputation as a merciless leader became undeniable. It wasn't about doctrine or even strategy. It was about power, loyalty, and control. According to Sheard, several key pastors and advisors were summoned to discuss a controversial decision regarding the expansion of the ministry's operations. On the surface, it seemed routine, but as soon as Jakes began speaking, the atmosphere changed. Voices were raised, questions were shut down, and long-standing alliances were tested. Bishop Sheard describes it as a calculated display of authority. Jakes methodically dismantled objections, challenged credibility, and left some attendees questioning their place within the ministry. One pastor, who had been a trusted advisor for over a decade, reportedly left the meeting in shock, telling Sheard later that he had never seen such a display of uncompromising control. "It was like watching a storm hit," Sheard explained. "Everything you thought you knew about how decisions were made vanished in an instant." The fallout was immediate. Relationships were strained, whispers began circulating through the community, and for a time, uncertainty hung over the ministry. People began asking questions they had never dared to voice, questions about ambition, morality, and the true cost of leadership. But here's what makes this moment even more extraordinary. While many would expect this type of conflict to fracture a team, Jakes' influence was so commanding that most returned, silent but obedient, continuing the work as if nothing had happened. The merciless side of leadership had done its job, asserting dominance, securing loyalty, and leaving the world none the wiser. Bishop Sheard emphasizes that this was not an isolated incident. There were other, smaller moments over the years that painted the same picture. A relentless pursuit of vision, sometimes at the expense of relationships. And yet, the public persona remained untarnished, leaving millions inspired, while a select few knew the reality behind the curtain. And just when it seemed like the tension had peaked, there was another revelation, something Sheard calls the most shocking truth of all. A personal choice, a hidden conflict, and a moment that could have changed the entire narrative about T.D. Jakes forever. While the public saw T.D. Jakes as a towering figure of inspiration, Bishop Sheard paints a different, more complex picture, one where personal choices and hidden conflicts shaped the course of the ministry and tested everyone involved. According to Sheard, one of the most eye-opening moments came when a close associate raised concerns about how certain high-level decisions were affecting pastors and staff behind the scenes. What followed, he says, revealed a side of Jakes few outside the inner circle had ever witnessed. Sheard recalls, insiders say, "It wasn't just about disagreements, it was about absolute authority. When someone challenged him, even respectfully, he didn't just defend his decision, he dismantled it and made you question your own judgment. It was merciless, calculated, and yet strangely precise." In one particularly intense scenario, a key staff member had been advocating for more transparency in financial and operational matters. Instead of a dialogue, Jakes reportedly confronted them with a series of questions and pointed challenges that left the room in silence. The tension was palpable. According to Sheard, some feared that speaking out could jeopardize their careers, their reputations, and even their spiritual standing within the ministry. But Bishop Sheard doesn't frame this as purely negative. He points out that these difficult, sometimes ruthless decisions were part of how Jakes maintained control over a rapidly growing empire. The ministry's expansion, influence, and global reach didn't come without cost. And while some walked away scarred or disillusioned, others adapted, learning to navigate the merciless leadership style while continuing to serve. The most shocking revelation, however, goes deeper than professional conflicts. Sheard hints at moments where personal relationships were tested, loyalties strained, alliances questioned, and trust broken in ways that went far beyond the pulpit. Friends, advisors, and even family members were impacted, often in silence, while the public continued to see only the inspiring sermons and larger-than-life personality of Jakes. And then there's the ultimate question: how much of this was ambition? How much was necessary leadership? And how much crossed a line that few outside the ministry would ever understand? Bishop Sheard suggests that these hidden conflicts and personal choices are part of a story that challenges the very way we view leadership, influence, and morality in the world of gospel ministry. As the story unfolds, one thing becomes clear: The legend of T.D. Jakes is far more complicated than the public ever imagined. And yet, despite the merciless moments, the ministry continues to thrive, leaving outsiders to wonder what truly goes on behind the scenes and whether the price of greatness is higher than anyone realizes. After hearing Bishop J. Drew Sheard's revelations, one thing becomes undeniable. T.D. Jakes' story is a complex mix of brilliance, ambition, and merciless leadership. The man who inspires millions on stage also carries a side few dare to speak about, a side that has left scars, shaped decisions, and tested loyalties in ways most of the public could never imagine. The rise of Jakes shows what extraordinary vision can accomplish. His sermons, books, and global influence are undeniable, touching lives across continents. Yet the insider truths revealed by Sheard remind us that leadership is never just what the public sees. The unseen conflicts, the personal sacrifices, and the calculated decisions behind the pulpit shape the real story, the story of power, faith, and human complexity. Bishop Sheard's perspective offers a rare glimpse into this dual reality. It's a cautionary tale about ambition, influence, and the weight of leadership. It challenges the gospel community and all of us to look beyond appearances, to question what is often hidden behind charisma, and to understand that even revered figures are human, capable of both inspiration and intensity that can border on merciless. For viewers, the lesson is profound. Success and influence, even in faith, come with hard choices, difficult relationships, and moments that test character and conviction. As Sheard reminds us, the stories we don't see are often the ones that matter most. They are the moments that define legacies, shape ministries, and challenge the very people we look up to. And as the dust settles on these revelations, we are left with a question that lingers. How do we reconcile admiration for greatness with the reality of its cost? How do we honor the impact while acknowledging the human flaws that come with power? If there's one thing this story makes clear, it's that truth is never one-dimensional. Bishop Sheard's insider perspective reminds us that even legends are layered, and even the most merciless moments can coexist with profound impact. So as you reflect on these revelations, think about your own journey. Think about leadership, influence, and the choices we make when no one is watching. And remember to engage, share your thoughts in the comments below, because conversations like this are how we learn, grow, and challenge the narratives we are given. If you found this story as eye-opening as we did, hit that like button, subscribe for more insider revelations, and share this video with others who want to see what really happens behind the scenes of gospel leadership. And stay tuned, there's more coming that will take you even deeper into the world of truth, faith, and controversy.